Hey friends, ready for a new story full of mystery and passion? Today, you'll hear how a tiny pendant turned Emily and Jake's lives upside down. Curse or love, mysticism or fate. Listen till the end to uncover the chilling truth and find out how this gripping tale ends. Let's dive in. Part 1. The beginning of the mystery. Portland, Oregon, awoke under the soft glow of morning sunlight. Towering skyscrapers in the downtown area gleamed with glass, while the lush parks of Selwood breathed with the freshness of pine and grass. The air carried the aroma of freshly brewed coffee from local cafes, mingling with the faint scent of rain that so often enveloped the city. In this bustling yet cozy corner lived Emily, a young nurse whose heart overflowed with kindness and whose soul burned with a tireless desire to help others. At 32, she had a slender frame, long chestnut hair usually tied into a neat bun to keep it out of the way during work, and warm brown eyes that radiated compassion for every patient. Her face, framed by a few loose strands, always held a gentle smile, even during the most grueling shifts at Portland's City Hospital. The sterile white walls, the smell of antiseptic, and the quiet hum of medical equipment were her daily reality. Her movements were precise, like clockwork, and her voice was soft and soothing, making patients feel safe. She loved her job, as every day she saved brought her a sense of pride. But lately, her life had been overshadowed by a mysterious affliction that crept in like a shadow trailing behind her. About a year ago, Emily began suffering from asthma attacks that struck without warning, at the most unexpected moments, during a shift at the hospital, in the middle of the night, or even during a walk in Laurelhurst Park. An invisible force seemed to squeeze her chest, her breath becoming shallow and ragged, and a strange vision would appear before her eyes, dark water enveloping her, as if she were sinking into a bottomless lake, drowning in panic. These visions terrified her, feeling almost tangible, as real as the world around her. As an experienced nurse, Emily turned to her colleagues at the hospital. She underwent countless tests, blood work, x-rays, allergy screenings. But the doctors could only shrug. No organic cause could be found. Her condition remained a mystery, and the attacks grew more frequent and intense, always accompanied by those eerie visions. Emily began avoiding crowded places, fearing an attack might catch her off guard. She hid her condition from those closest to her, especially her beloved Jake, not wanting to burden him. But the fear that had taken root in her soul became unbearable, like a heavy stone dragging her down. Jake was her anchor, her light in the storm of life. Tall and broad-shouldered, with short dark hair and a warm smile that could melt any heart, he worked as a mechanic at a small auto shop in Portland suburbs. His hands, always slightly stained with grease, were strong and skilled, capable of fixing any engine. But his true strength lay in his ability to make Emily happy. He loved surprising her, a bouquet of wildflowers picked during a drive outside the city, or a candlelit dinner in their small Selwood apartment. Their relationship was filled with tenderness, like evening walks along the Willamette River, where they held hands and dreamed of a shared future, a house in the countryside, a small family, quiet evenings by the fireplace. But the asthma attacks made Emily feel a dark presence looming between them, threatening their dreams. One evening, after a particularly severe attack that left her gasping for her inhaler, Emily sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring out the window. Moonlight illuminated the streets of Selwood, and the sounds of nighttime Portland, car horns, distant laughter, felt foreign. She realized she could no longer endure the uncertainty. Her friend Lisa had once mentioned Madame Clara, a renowned Portland psychic known for unraveling mysteries beyond logic's reach. Though skeptical due to her medical background, Emily decided to seek her out. Madame Clara lived in Oregon City, in an old wooden house surrounded by a garden of fragrant herbs. The house felt like a portal to another world. Dim candlelight cast eerie shadows on walls adorned with vintage paintings of nature and mystical symbols. The air was thick with the scent of lavender, sage, and a faint trace of incense smoke. Madame Clara, a woman in her mid-40s, had neatly styled hair pulled into a bun with streaks of gray, lending her an air of enigmatic wisdom. Her white linen blouse was impeccably pressed, and her piercing gray eyes seemed to see beyond the surface. Her movements were slow but deliberate, her voice low and almost hypnotic. Emily stepped inside, her heart pounding with anticipation and fear, sitting at an old oak table scattered with tarot cards and a bundle of dried herbs. Emily recalled her last birthday, when it all began. That evening at a downtown Portland restaurant was filled with joy. Candlelight reflected off wine glasses, soft music played, and the laughter of friends created a warm atmosphere. Jake, dressed in his best shirt, looked particularly striking, his eyes gleaming with happiness. He had prepared a special gift, and Emily still remembered the thrill when he handed her a small box. "Oh my God, it's like something out of a movie," Emily exclaimed as Jake revealed the box with a mysterious smile. "Thank you. But wait, this isn't the main surprise," he replied, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Here it is, the most important gift." Jake opened the box, revealing a star-shaped pendant that gleamed in the candlelight, like a celestial body. Now, in Madame Clara's house, Emily recounted that evening, feeling fear tighten her throat. Her hands trembled as she described putting on the pendant and how the attacks began soon after. "That night at my birthday, we were celebrating, drinking wine, and then, Clara, I don't even know how to explain it." Emily sighed, her voice heavy with despair. Madame Clara listened intently, her fingers lightly touching the silver medallion she wore as a talisman. "Take 5 flowers. Pluck them and throw them into the water," she advised in a calm but firm voice. Gesturing toward the garden outside, though doubtful, Emily followed the ritual. She stepped into the garden, where the evening air was cool and the herbs rustled in the breeze. Plucking 5 white daisies, she tossed them into a nearby stream, watching the petals float away. It was her first brush with the mystical, and it scared her, but it also sparked a glimmer of hope. "I'm a nurse, but I lost my senses back then, didn't even think of my inhaler. Nearly died," Emily confessed, her voice shaking with the memory. "I'd never gone to a psychic before, but now I'm sure it helped," she added, feeling a slight relief. Madame Clara shook her head, her eyes narrowing as if seeing something beyond the visible. "Medicine won't help you because you're not sick. I see a star threatening your life. It was there that night. Think back," she said, her voice steady and certain. Emily felt a chill run down her spine, as if an icy hand brushed her skin. "You're right, there was a star-shaped pendant. My fiancé, Jake, gave it to me for my birthday last year. But I don't wear it. The chain broke, and it's sitting on my nightstand at home," she replied, her voice quieter. "Don't wear it. That object carries evil. Get rid of it as soon as possible. Take the star back to where it came from, and the illness will vanish," Madame Clara warned, her tone stern, almost commanding. "All right, I understand. Thank you." Emily nodded, a mix of anxiety and determination settling in her chest. Back in her Selwood apartment, the scent of freshly brewed coffee lingered, but the cozy atmosphere gave way to unease. Shadows seemed darker in the corners. Emily found the box with the pendant on her nightstand. Opening it carefully, she saw the star glint in the dim lamplight, as if warning of danger. Her heart raced as she tucked it deeper into a drawer, hoping to shield herself from harm. She called Jake, her voice trembling as she arranged to meet the next morning. She knew she had to find out where he got the pendant and follow Madame Clara's advice before the shadow haunting her grew darker. Part 2. Shadows of Doubt. The next day, Portland woke under a clear sky, sunlight flooding the city with golden warmth, reflecting off the glass windows of downtown skyscrapers. Emily met Jake in Laurelhurst Park, where tall poplars rustled their leaves, and the scent of freshly cut grass mingled with blooming magnolias. The park was a favorite among locals. Children rode bikes, and couples strolled hand in hand. Jake stood by an old wooden bench, holding a massive bouquet of roses that smelled sweet and delicate. His dark green eyes glowed with warmth, and a light stubble added to his charm. He wore his favorite denim jacket, which Emily always saw as a symbol of his carefree nature. But today, she couldn't shake the feeling that an invisible wall had risen between them. The park's romantic atmosphere was tinged with tension, like the calm before a storm rolling in from the Pacific. Emily, dressed in a light blue dress that swayed in the breeze, stood across from Jake, trying to hide her anxiety. Her brown eyes, usually warm, now hid unease. She recalled Madame Clara's words about the pendant, feeling fear grip her heart. But Jake seemed oblivious to her turmoil. He handed her the bouquet, his smile genuine, though a faint shadow flickered in his eyes that Emily couldn't decipher. "Here's a huge bouquet for you. It's the least I can do. I love you so much. Let's finally get married." Jake proposed, his voice brimming with sincerity and enthusiasm. Emily's heart fluttered with joy. She had long dreamed of this, picturing them standing together at an altar in a small Oregon City church, her in a flowing white dress like the Willamette River. That dream was her safe haven. But now it was clouded by suspicion and fear. "You're the only one I want as my wife," Jake added, taking her hand. His palm was warm, but Emily felt a slight chill as she thought of the pendant. She nodded, smiling, but the thought of the star that carried evil gnawed at her. She wanted to ask about it, but his words about marriage were so heartfelt that she couldn't bring herself to ruin the moment. "Your tiny Selwood apartment won't fit us in this bouquet, so move in with me," Jake insisted, teasing, his eyes sparkling with amusement. "Fine, but your car's in the shop. How are we going to manage that?" Emily asked, trying to mask her doubts with a light tone. "By the way, I recently saw my old friend Mike. He works at an auto shop in Oregon City and promised to help with transport," Jake replied, his voice casual. But Emily noticed him quickly look away. Emily was so moved by the marriage proposal that she forgot to ask about the pendant. Her heart warmed at the thought of a future with Jake, but anxiety lingered. A month passed after moving into his apartment in the Hawthorne district. The apartment was spacious, with large windows letting in sunlight that bounced off the wooden floors, creating a cozy atmosphere. But now, that coziness gave way to tension. The box with the pendant got lost among her things during the move, and, surprisingly, the asthma attack stopped. Emily hoped it was a good sign, but new suspicions began to torment her. Jake was increasingly staying late at work, coming home long after midnight when Portland slept. On weekends, he vanished without explanation, leaving Emily alone with her thoughts. She started to suspect he was cheating, and those thoughts poisoned her heart like a bitter aftertaste point one evening. Unable to bear it, Emily decided to confide in her best friend, Lisa. They met at a cozy cafe in the Pearl District, where the air smelled of freshly brewed coffee and vanilla from baked pastries. Lisa, a lively blonde with sparkling blue eyes and boundless energy, always knew how to listen and offer practical advice. Her bright smile and floral-patterned dress contrasted with Emily's melancholic mood as she sat, nervously clutching her coffee cup. "I think Jake's cheating on me," Emily confessed, her voice trembling, her eyes filling with sadness. "No way. You just moved in together. Guys don't cheat that fast," Lisa countered, her voice confident but tinged with sympathy. "But why is he always staying late at work and never around on weekends?" "It's Saturday, and he's gone somewhere," Emily complained, her fingers nervously twisting the spoon in her coffee. "Ask him straight up," Lisa suggested, sipping her latte and gazing thoughtfully out the window at the twinkling lights of evening Portland. "I did. He says he's fishing or fixing the car at the garage. But he never brings fish home, and the car should be fixed by now," Emily replied, her suspicions growing stronger. "Talk to one of his friends. You'll figure it out," Lisa advised, her tone practical. Returning home, Emily noticed a car parked near the neighboring building, similar to Mike's, Jake's friend. Mike was tall and burly, with rough features, short-cropped hair, and dark eyes that always seemed a bit sly. He had a reputation as a reliable friend, but his confident demeanor made Emily uneasy. The street was noisy, with car horns and the smell of wet asphalt after rain. Recalling Lisa's advice, Emily approached, her heart pounding. "I'm not great with cars, just wanted to check if this is yours. Jake said you two often cross paths at work," Emily said, trying to sound casual, though her voice betrayed a tremble. "Yeah, sometimes. But we talk shop, not girls. Back in school, he chased girls, but that was ages ago. Forget it," Mike replied, his voice gruff but friendly, his smile slightly mocking. The conversation left Emily more confused. Her thoughts swirled like autumn leaves in the wind. That evening, Jake returned late, the moon illuminating Portland's dark sky, stars twinkling above the Willamette River. The Hawthorne apartment felt cold despite the heat being on. Emily was convinced he was hiding something. She couldn't sleep, lying in bed, listening to the clock tick in the silence. The next morning, unable to take it anymore, She drove back to Madame Clara in Oregon City. The psychic's house greeted her with the familiar scent of herbs and dim candlelight. Madame Clara, in her white linen blouse, looked calm, but her gray eyes radiated concern. Her neatly styled hair with gray streaks gleamed in the candlelight, adding to her mystique. Jake proposed, I agreed, moved in with him. And now I think he's deceiving me, Emily confessed, her voice trembling as she gripped her bag strap. Show me his photo, Madame Clara requested, her eyes narrowing as if peering into an unseen reality. Emily handed over her phone with a picture of Jake smiling by the Willamette River. Madame Clara studied it, her fingers clutching her silver medallion. I see the same star that stole your breath. You lost it during the move, but the trouble hasn't passed. It's gotten worse. He's not cheating, but he's hiding something. The danger is greater. This pendant belonged to a suicide. If you don't return it to where it came from, it will drag you both to the grave, Madame Clara said, her voice cold as the winter wind along the river. Where would Jake get a suicide's belonging? I'll throw it out, Emily exclaimed, her heart racing, her hands trembling. Throwing it out won't help. You need to know the exact place. Ask Jake, Madame Clara advised, her gaze filled with compassion. Terrified, Emily returned home. The Hawthorne apartment was quiet, the clock ticking in the darkness like a countdown to doom. She found the box with the pendant hidden among old belongings in a closet. The star gleamed, as if warning of danger. Emily called Jake, her voice resolute despite the fear gripping her. Where did you get it? She asked, clutching the pendant, her fingers squeezing it so tightly her knuckles whitened. Honestly, I bought the box, but the pendant. I caught it instead of a fish when I was fishing. Thought it was a sign and gave it to you, Jake admitted, his voice tinged with guilt, a shadow of shame in his eyes. I'm uneasy. Let's return it to where you found it, Emily urged, her voice firm but her heart pounding. You think I remember where that was? It was a year ago, maybe by the dam on the Willamette River. It's a good fishing spot. This weekend, we'll go, take a walk, maybe find the place, Jake replied, trying to sound confident, but Emily noticed his hands nervously gripping the phone. Part 3. The resolution of the mystery. Emily decided not to tell Jake about her visit to Madame Clara, hoping to resolve everything herself. She imagined returning the pendant and freeing them from the curse hanging over their lives. Her thoughts swirled like dark clouds over Portland, where rain was a frequent guest. The weekend was supposed to be calm, but on Saturday morning, she woke up in an empty Hawthorne apartment. Sunlight poured through the large windows, reflecting off the polished wooden floor, but the silence was oppressive, like the calm before a storm. Emily walked to the kitchen, where she found a note scribbled in Jake's hasty handwriting. Sorry, love, had to leave for work urgently. Back tomorrow evening. His phone didn't answer, and Emily felt fear grip her heart like a cold hand. She paced the apartment, trying to calm herself, but thoughts of betrayal and the cursed pendant refused to let go. The streets of Portland buzzed outside. Car horns, laughter of passers-by, the distant murmur of the Willamette River, all felt alien. Emily sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, recalling Madame Clara's words, feeling hope slip away. After the weekend, Jake returned, his face pale with exhaustion, his eyes dull, as if he hadn't slept in days. He tossed his denim jacket onto a chair and sighed heavily, avoiding Emily's gaze. We need to talk. Where were you? Your phone was off. I nearly went gray worrying, Emily exclaimed, her voice trembling with anger and anxiety. Her hands clenching into fists. Had issues with clients. Was working on a car. Phone died. Jake replied, his voice flat, his eyes dodging hers. Emily knew he wasn't telling the truth. Her suspicions deepened when, the next morning, Mike intercepted her outside the building. He stood by his car, holding a cigarette, its smoke curling into the air. His rough appearance and smug smile stirred mixed feelings in Emily. The street was noisy, with the smell of wet asphalt after a night's rain and the distant sound of the river adding to the tension. He said you've got to pay back some money by Friday, 'cause you got mixed up in something bad, Mike told her, his eyes glinting with slyness. Emily felt the ground slip beneath her. Her heart raced, her thoughts spinning like a whirlwind. She stormed back to Jake, her steps echoing in the apartment's hallway. Mike told me you're chasing easy money. That you're mixed up in car thefts," she shouted, her eyes blazing with anger, her voice trembling with pain. Jake lowered his head, his hands shaking, his face growing paler. "I didn't want to drag you into this. Mike promised to make me shop manager, but first, he offered some quick cash. I was doctoring plates on stolen cars. One time, a luxury car burned, and now I owe a huge sum. I'll fix it," he confessed, his voice thick with despair, his eyes filled with shame. Emily was devastated. Her world, once full of hope, was crumbling. She feared going to the police, as it could ruin their future. Her thoughts swirled around Jake, the pendant, and the dark shadow haunting them. The next morning, she drove back to Madame Clara in Oregon City. The psychic's house greeted her with the familiar scent of herbs and dim candlelight flickering in a draft. Madame Clara, in her white linen blouse, looked calm, but her gray eyes radiated concern. Her neatly styled hair with gray streaks gleamed in the candlelight, enhancing her aura of wisdom. "The star is still with you. Give it to me," Madame Clara said, her voice low and firm. Emily handed over the box with the pendant, her hands trembling. Madame Clara carefully examined it, her fingers gently touching the star, as if it might burn. "Jake hasn't cheated, but he's planning to disappear, thinking it'll solve his problems. Those are suicidal thoughts. If you don't return the star to its place, you won't save him. I see a place where he photographed a silver leaping animal. He has that photo. Light a candle, perform the ritual, and say, 'The fire burns, the star shines, the restless spirit it confines. Let the star fade, let the fire die, spare my life and love, don't let them cry,'" Madame Clara advised, her voice strong and commanding. Emily felt hope mingle with fear. She returned home and found Jake preparing to leave somewhere. His face was tense, his eyes full of despair, his hands nervously clutching his car keys. "I know what you're planning. There's no other way. I have to protect you," Jake said, his voice shaking, his eyes glistening with tears. Emily persuaded him to stay, her voice firm but her heart breaking. They didn't talk that evening. Jake fell asleep from exhaustion, his face weary. The next morning, he couldn't recall the previous day, his eyes confused. Emily sat across from him at the kitchen table, the scent of fresh coffee lingering, and told him about Madame Clara and her advice to return the pendant. Though skeptical, Jake believed the pendant posed a threat, his expression turning serious. "You photographed a silver animal there. Find the photo," Emily urged, her voice filled with hope. "A deer. It was a deer figurine on the hood of an old Ford. They don't make those anymore. I remember the place. Let's go," Jake exclaimed, his eyes lighting up with hope, his hands steadying. Jake drove Emily to the dam on the Willamette River. The river roared, its waters glinting in the sun, the wind whistling in their ears, carrying the scent of water and grass. The atmosphere was mystical, as if nature itself watched them. They lit a candle, its flames swaying in the breeze, and performed the ritual. "The fire burns, the star shines, the restless spirit it confines. Let the star fade, let the fire die, spare my life and love. Don't let them cry," they said together. Tossing the pendant into the water, the river swallowed the star, and Emily felt an invisible weight lift from her shoulders. They returned to their Hawthorne apartment, which now felt brighter, as if the shadow had dissipated. But the debt issue lingered like a dark cloud on the horizon. Fortunately, the Portland police arrested Mike and his accomplices involved in the car thefts. Jake testified as a witness, his statements helping dismantle the criminal network. Mike went to prison, his shadow no longer darkening their lives. Emily and Jake married in a warm ceremony surrounded by family and friends in Laurelhurst Park, where blooming magnolias created a fairy tale atmosphere. A year later, their daughter was born, her laughter filling their home with joy, like sunlight after rain. They became more cautious with gifts, heeding Madame Clara's advice. "Don't pick up found objects, for you never know who they belong to. No matter how tempting a find may be, leave it where it lies." Friends, that's the end of our mystical tale. Loved it? Hit like and subscribe to True Stories of Fate. Stay tuned for a new captivating story. Share your own mystical stories in the comments. We can't wait to read them. See you soon, and let fate surprise you.